Ooh, what is up, guys? I smoked some big doinks. I'm ready. Okay, browse. Gen 2, we're going to pull up the links from scratch book. Ooh. Hmm. Wow, beautiful. I'm going to be reading a lot. And then there's also someone on YouTube that when I first tried to do LFS, I literally picked his videos. I'm not going to. You took five. It took you 5 days to install Gen 2? Yeah, man. I'm retarded. So this is going to take at least a couple years. Look, I found out why it took so long. Gen 2 would have been installed borderline immediately the first time if I would have remembered that I was in a BIOS system. It wasn't UEFI for whatever reason. GNU boxes defaults to UEFI. I figured out in Gen 2 in 2 days. Yeah. It's what a virgin would say. 1, 2, 3. What's up, Ravish? I have 16 of it. I'm going to give it 8 cores, 8 CPUs. That should be enough. 10. No, not 8. That was my biggest oopsie daisy. I'm like, oh God. I'll give it 100. 75 gigs. Oh, 414 available. Forward. Now that I'm building Chromium OS 1. Building Chromium OS. You can build that? Okay, firmware. Should I pick UEFI? Or should I stick with BIOS? Let's see what the docs say. I'm going to bring this over here. Yes. Yes, what? Yes, what? I should use BIOS. I should stick with it. Your host system should have the Chromium OS with minimum pitches. Oh, that'd be cool. If I can do that, yeah, that'd be cool. Your host system should have the following software with the bare minimum version indicated. This should not be an issue for most Linux distributions. Also note that many distributions will place software headers in separate packages, often in the form of package name. GCC compiler, the Linux kernel. For the reason of this kernel version requirement, we specify version when building glibc in chapter 5 and chapter 8. So the workarounds, I mean, why not try? We're gonna make glowy FS. No backdoors, super safe. Everything Rust though. That'd be cool, but the maintenance guide, that sounds insane. But yeah, I'll make it glowy as whoever once when I'm done with this, um I'll make an official ISO and send it out so people can test it. The reason for the Linux kernel version requirement is that we specify a version when building in chapter 5 and chapter 8. So the workarounds for older kernels are not enabled, and the compiled GClib is slightly faster and smaller. As of December 2024, 5.4 is the oldest kernel release supported by the kernel developers. I'll give you $50. I'm not promising. You should always promise. Can you do a fully non-GNU distro except a fully non-GNU distro except the GNU core utils? Like no GNU software besides the core GNU utils? No, we should do the opposite. We should do a fully GNU only GNU software. For the kernel host, let's see. Man, I gotta use some brain power. If the host kernel is older than 5.4, you'll need to replace the kernel with more updated version. There are two ways you can go about this. First, see that if your Linux vendor provides for a later kernel package. Yes, like Android. If so, you may wish to install it. If your vendor doesn't offer an acceptable kernel package or prefer not to install it, you can compile a kernel yourself. Instructions for compiling the kernel, configuring the bootloader, assuming the host uses grub. They are located in Chapter 10. We require the host kernel to support Unix 98 sudo terminal PTY. It should be enabled on DOS or server distros shipping a Linux 5.4 or newer kernel. If you're building a custom host kernel, ensure config Unix byte is not set to Y in the kernel configuration. Linux Libre with GNU approved software. Damn it. Yeah, true. The thing is, I couldn't do it like Rust because Rust is apparently not approved. Their requirement for Rust is actually kind of bullshit. Their reasoning for Rust is kind of bullshit. I mean, they're standing on principle, you know what I mean? And I respect it because they're standing on principle, but I'm fucking like, really? But you know, do you, bro? I wonder, does KeyPass DX is that GNU approved? What's their Rust is approved? Oh no, sorry, Hyperbola. It's cargo. It's cargo, right? Hyperbola or cargo? Which is the one that's not approved? They were, or is that just Hyperbola? They're like Rust is not approved. Make patch import. Note that it's important to mention the above required build LFS systems using the instructions contained within the book. System links that point to other software such as dash mock may not work, but are not tested or supported by the LFS development team. Many require either development from the instruction conditionals. Guys, I'm scared. Should I just do Arch? I've done Gen 2. Should I just do Arch instead? To see whether your host system has the approved versions, programs run the following command. Okay. It's just that's Hyperbola. Oh, it's Hyperbola only. Okay. Introduction. User glibc you pick. Do void. Also glibc. Huh. I should do void next. LFS first, but I'll do void next. Errata and security advisories. Okay. If Cargo and Rust were not approved by the Free Software Foundation, they would get heavy backlash. Oh, yeah, true. So it's just Hyperbola. They're pretty extreme then. They're more extreme than hosting requirements. Software. Gotcha. Okay, I think that's it. So I'm wondering if this guy said.
So it looks like I see what's said. Presses it a window. And as it boots, you'll resume. Okay, so the while set to boot from a USB drive by default. One thing, I forgot about this. The Gen 2 Live USB has got is a copy of memtest installed. So it's probably a good idea if you've never done any compiling on your machine before to run memtest. It will basically do a cursory test of the memory. It's not
Hyperbola is just
foolproof.
extreme as fuck.
I've had memtest pass without any failures in the past, and when I've come to do some compiling, especially something quite heavy like GCC, the compiler, it's failed, and it's been because of memory errors. So it's not completely foolproof, but it's a good way of getting a bit of confidence in the fact that your machine is capable of doing some, or not your machine, sorry, the memory is up to scratch. The thing with compiling is that it stresses the.
Are you using Gen 2 Live Distro to install LFS? Yeah. I am going to do that. Okay. Let's go. Woo! Really big. Big. Okay, so this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna do LFS, then void, then arch, and then I'll become a master Linux brain. I will know everything. I will be the compiler king. I will change my channel's name to Super Linux Master Race. I will personally replace Linus Torvald as the maintainer of Linux. If I, you know, like I'll be the Thanos of Linux. I will have collected all the personal hell points. Now, LFS is apparently more or less not as hard, but it's more time consuming than anything. That's like, oh, we gotta do this. We gotta do dark mode. Ugh, hurts my eyes. It's like jump scare. At dark mode should be default. Anyone who, from going forward, who doesn't make dark mode their default, in any project, any software development, any application, any website, if you don't do dark mode going forward and by default, you suck and everyone hates you. LFS is just making a distro. Kind of. You're just doing Linux from scratch. I mean, you're customizing it, I guess, yeah. In theory. Oh, wait, can't do that. I need to see that. Okay. Okay. Introduction. Creating a new part. Okay. Software. First, we're going to do that. Oh, yeah. This is so cool. You can do a virtual machine inside a virtual machine inside a virtual machine. No. Of course I'm using a VPN. Do I look retarded? I don't like ads. Okay. You should have streamed using I2P. That'd be funny. Oh, I thought it's because you saw an IP address and you're like, no, bad OPSEC, bad OPSEC, bad OPSEC. You know what I mean? No! Exposed! Hmm. I do love ITP. I don't even know if that'd be possible. I don't know what the maximum bandwidth of ITP is. Freenet WED. Freenet WED is when Freenet gets their shit together. Okay, it looks like I got everything. Like most other operating systems, Alphys is usually installed. Can we look at more schizo websites sometime? Yeah. You never finished Gen 2? I did. I installed it. Fuck you, Ryan.
CPU, which then produces a lot of heat, and if you're version, but dimensions and positions of. So let's position the browser on the left, and all the commands we type in will go in on the right. To going to the LFS website, read online. No, it's still not been
Hmm.
updated yet, so I'll just go to my local copy that I've got.
Shut up, Ryan. Look, be proud of me. Okay. Installed a dedicated partition. The recommended approach is to build an LF system is to use an available empty partition, or if you have enough unpartitioned space, to create one. A minimal system requires around 10 gigabytes. This is enough to store all the source tarbles, compile the packages. However, if the LF system is intended to be the primary Linux system, in addition to software, will probably, at least he installed Gen 2. Definitely help with everyone, help with people, like everyone that helped me through my Gen 2 installation was amazing. I loved it. The LF system itself will not take much more room. 30 gig partition is reasonable size to provide growth. The LF system, Ryan probably uses a bunch of 18 LTS with app and disabled. True. No, Ryan uses Linux Mint, which is worse. The LF system itself will not take more than that because there's no way, now is enough random RAM available for compilation process. It's a good idea to use a small disk partition as the swap space. This is used by the kernel to store seldom used data and leave more memory available for active process. The swap partition for LFS system can be the same as the one used by the host system, in which case it is not necessary to create another one. Start a disk partition program such as cfdisk or fdisk with the command line option naming the hard disk in which the new partition will be created. For example, switch to Fedora Workstation as SE Linux by default. Nah, Linux Mint is goated. I'm a Linux Mint hater. Sorry, man. Start a disk partition program such as that. Note, for experienced users, other partition schemes are possible. The new LF system can be on a software RAID or LVM logical volume. However, some of these options require interframes. Other partition issues. Remember the designation of partition, SDA5. To refer this as the LF partition, also remember the designation swap partition. These names will be needed for that's fstab file. Okay. cfdisk first, lsblk. 120 gigs, so more than enough time. Linux Mint doesn't have AppArmor, then KickSecure is an improvement over stock Debian. KickSecure is definitely an improvement over stock Debian. They do some pretty good. They lack hardware malloc and some other. They have a whole reasoning behind it. I get it. It's fine. I read their reasoning and I'm like, do you, baby? The root partition. A root LFS partition is not to be used with a root directory of 20 gigabytes is good compromise for most system. It has provided enough space to build LFS and most BLFS, but small enough so that its multiple partitions can be easily created for the experimentation. The swap partition. Oh, generally it's recommended the size of swap partition be about twice the amount of physical RAM. However, it's rarely needed. Disk space is limited. Hold the swap partition to 2 gigabytes and monitor the amount of disk swap. Harden Gen 2 project. For real. The grub BIOS partition. If the boot disk has been partitioned with a GUID partition table, GPT, then small, typically 1 megabyte partition must be created if it does not already exist. Okay, so yeah, good thing I did BIOS. That would have been a big oopsie daisy. Convenience partitions. There are several partitions. Swap partition. Okay, so we just gotta make 3 partitions. I have 30 gigs to spare. I actually have 128 gigs, which I think is more than enough. I'm gonna make sure this one glows, and then distribute it on IPFS, and never update it again. I'm just gonna get some expert advice on the side. Due to security reasons, Daniel McKay suggested Musil over glibc. I think Musil has less. It's less bloated. Preference and introduction.
Okay, in blank sessions. Pure rituals, rebuild environment root.
Oh yeah, I should
Part
probably.
2, chapter 2 onwards, and then we start building in chapter 5. But there's a lot of information, a lot of preliminary stuff we need to do to set up the system. If you appreciate, at the moment we've got a Windows system on the hard disk, and we want to replace that with the
Wonder if I can pick some other reason. Not because of that. Some other reasons. Oh, okay. I thought it was because it was bloated or something.
a lot less on a new machine. Command system was going and know your way around the chance of stopping done by everyone involved. But those packages haven't been set. How they keep it. The bit beyond Linux and Scratch is a bit more of a Wild West type thing. But then that is a much more
Interesting. XFCE, please give Wayland support. Kick Secure, but also uses Kick Secure all uses X11. Yeah. That is a problem.
so right, that's the domestic stuff out of the way, I guess. So we're ready to go into yeah, machine, as I said. So there's no separate disks in the system. A bit simple, and we've still got this GPU call that command, and go into fdisk and wipe these. It seems if you've got more disks in the system, create here or anything. Split right this one, or flash drives. A switch called -A to wipe all the partitions, but there's also a safety switch, which means that if I recall the command now, it won't actually do anything because there isn't anything to that identifier 0x next free sector, and that's on.
So I need Linux swap and then the rest. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, but XFCE looks like ass. And this is coming from a Cubes OS enjoyer and user. GPT. The first one should be, let's go to chapter. Dude, 250 megabytes. 1 gig for SD2. Oh, for the swap. Okay. 150 megabytes. And then do. Okay, so 30 gigs. Free space, so yeah. One gig. We'll just do 1 gig. Probably overkill. No. Let's do 2 gigs. Let's do 4 gig. 2 gigs. 2 gigs. 4 gigs. Just in case. And then we're gonna type. And then There was a Gen 2 port of Unix, but they abandoned it. That would be super funny. But I think that if compile times are too high, that would, I mean, maybe be a bad idea because of like how you need stuff like literally consistently. I don't know. I don't know how that would work. Okay, we can quit now. Okay, so the swap partition, kind of get that. With an SSD, you will not be able to hear swapping, but you can tell how much swap is being used by running top or free programs. Use of it. Yo, we only use HTOP in this bitch. All my HTOP enjoyers. Look at that. Only one. Yo, I'm using 1 gig. Blow. What's going on? KDE blow. There are several other partitions that are not required but should be considered when designing a disk layout. The following list is not comprehensive but is meant to be a guide. Boot, highly recommended. This partition to store the kernel information to minimize potential boot problems with large disks. Make this the first physical partition of your first disk drive. A partition size of 200 megabytes is adequate. Boot EFI, the EFI system partition, which is needed to be booting UEFI. Read the BLFS for details. Home, highly recommended. Share your home directory. User, in LFS, bin, lib, and sbin are system linked to their counterparts user, so the user contains all the binaries needed for the system to run. For LFS to separate the partition to user normally is not needed. If you create it anyways, you should make a partition large enough to fit all the programs in. No love for BTOP. I knew BTOP was gonna come too. I'm gonna be like, where's the BTOP enjoyers? Not even pre-installed. For a reason. For a reason. Is Vim by default? Yeah, Vim's installed. Gen 2 is like GigaChad Linux users are like HTOP pre-installed. And Vim, say less. If you create anyway, it should make a partition large enough to fill the programs and libraries in the system. The root partition can be very small, maybe just 1 gigabyte in this configuration, so it's suitable for a thin client or diskless workstation where user mounted is from a remote server. However, you should be aware that interframes not covered by LFS will be needed to boot system with a separate use partition. No love for BTOP. BTOP, all right. This is directly useful for BLFS when multiple large packages like KDE or text file can be installed without the embedded file systems hierarchy. If you use 5 to 10 gigabytes, oh. So I got my partitions. I'm gonna
dev sta2
look over what British man says.
And that's it. So now if I do a list, yeah, I think this message will probably disappear when we install the boot sector, I think.
All right, so it's there. A system
annoying,
within a system.
It's not going to cause us any problems, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. So anyway, we've got the partitions all configured. We've formatted them, so they've got data structures on there. They've got file systems on there.
Okay, so I did size 1 gig, 4 gig, 123 gigs.
And the LFS variable is quite important in the initial stages of building because it points to a location where these partitions will be mounted, and it's more important, even more important in the fact that if you don't get this right, you could corrupt the host file system, which probably is not that important because we're on a live USB, but if you're using an actual real USB Linux system, then you're very
Interesting. What is super different? Creating the file system on a partition. Throughout the book, the environment variable will be used several times.
I always use your hardware. I don't know what problems or what issues you might have with that. Recommends that, or write it in DD image mode, or UEFI. It involves a little bit more from Beyond Linux from scratch. Occasions when I have actually installed it. User, but we're in the root system. Potentially lock yourself out of your disk and not have access to it. So be very, very careful if you do decide to do this. Check maybe what the model is, and then what I do is to double click that to copy it to the clipboard and then paste it in so there's no potential problems that could be caused by typos. So for example, if I actually typed say SDN, which the N's next to the, sorry, SDD, for example, the D's near the A key on the English keyboard.
Huh. Is that the fucking donation noise? There's a donation noise? What do you mean? Donation noise? Hmm. Okay.
The boot partition I use the boot partition files that convenience partitions. I generally always create a boot partition. It says it's highly recommended here. My reason for using a boot partition is that it segregates the critical boot files, so that's the kernel basically, and the grub files that are used to from the DU, and it acts on because of its tendencies. It's probably not a lot of point in creating separate partitions. Again, it just adds boot part. And as it says, any separate tab. So creating a file system on a partition. It says here about using ext2, 3 or 4. Well, ext4 is the current one. It's been around for probably 10 years or more. There's no point in using the older versions. Even with the boot partition, I use ext4 because it's journaled. It gives that extra protection, if you like. And it says there's a few other bonuses, nanosecond timestamps, if that matters. Very large files, that won't matter because kernel files are small in comparison. It says that other systems, file systems, are used for specialized purposes, but there's no pause current completed the specified. It says extra work anyway. And as it says, any separate partition you want automatically mounted must be specified in the etc fs tab file. So we'll see that at the end when we've completed the compiling. So creating a file system on a partition. It says here about using ext2, 3 or 4. Well, ext4 is the current one. It's been around for probably 10 years or more. Or because it's journaled as specialized purposes, but format. So that's the one I've laid file generally prepared. Just Linux partitions. So that's wrong. It's not what you would see if you'd come from a Windows partition. You would see 3 or 4 Microsoft type partitions there. So bear that in mind if you're scratching your head wondering why I've got Linux partitions. That's why. As I say, overnight I've been running tests on this machine and it seems to have been okay overnight. So I'm hoping that it's going to behave today. And as I say, I thought it was something I did initially, but I don't think so now. So that's
okay, I can do probably need Okay, so this can be used any file system in the kernel, but most types are X3 and X4. The choice of file system can be complex. It depends on the characteristics of the files and the size of partitions. For example, suitable for smart partitions that are updated frequently, such as boot. Is an upgrade to X2 that includes journal help recover partition status. Is the latest version of the family. It provides several new capabilities, including nanosecond timestamping, creation, and use of very large files up to 16 terabytes, and speed improvements. Other file systems as FAT32, NFTFS, and GATFS, and XFS are used for specified purpose. More information about these file systems can be found here. LFS assumes the root file system is type X4. To create an X4 file system on the LFS partition, issuing the following command. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Alpha assumes that you have the root file system is type X4. Okay.
a bit of an anomaly, unfortunately, but it is what it is. So what we've got to do is to get rid of those partitions. Now we could go into fdisk and just delete them one by one. We've got the potential problem, try and boot. Delete is to use wipe fs, which wipes file system. And because we want to erase all of the disk, I want to use the A option to erase all. And initially I want to use the N option, which is the no action. So it does everything except for the write. And as you can see, it needs a device. So what I do here to be sure I'm dealing with the correct device is to list it. Oops. List it with -L. That's the correct device. It looks right. Check maybe what the model is. Clipboard, say SDN, which the end's next to the. So I might. So three. It's written or erase the signature. I think it's. I do have to. I'll do the right. I do. Nothing there for traditions. Which tells us yourself out of your disk and not have access to it. Make any changes to it. I don't need to let you it's not frozen and the password as in for security enhanced with SSDs. Both these commands myself. And in fact, if I do od/dev/sectors that are on the disk, do less those zeros now. I've just thought and for a mechanical disk. Let's and that's it. Next partition, create new, primary again. So partition, and I'm going to make this 256 megabytes because this is going to be my boot partition. And that's created there.
Interesting.
So do Peter print. You can see there's the first partition I've created. The next partition, create new, primary again. The next available one is partition number 2, so I'll take that. Start gigabytes of memory. That means I'll SSD. It fdisk now prints up a list of the most commonly used ones. It never used to do this, so rather than hunting through and being a bit unsure, for example, there's several ones here for you. And as you can see, the swap partition tells us that it's changed it to Linux Windows. It's come up with default of 2, so I'll just accept that. Well, recently to do those strokes alike boot and a swap partition, which is partition number 2. Print that it's changed 82, so yeah, 5 ones there. Rather than print should be, you can type L to list them all and know what the partition type is, what number it should be. You can type L to list them all to do those 9. And as you can see, the swap partition is that they swap and select the next 3 partitions to use the rest of the disk. And you can see layout button. I can double check that from straight from, and there it all is. So the first one is 6 megabytes. I'll recall that command and just change that to 3 because that's the root partition. So it'll take a little bit longer because that's the root 250. So that's SDA1 file system. First one is to format using the ext4 file system, and as I said, I'm going to create that file system on the boot partition. So that's SDA1.
So I'll make it the boot partition that explanation. I'm lost in Hyperland recently. NixOS Hyperland. Oh no, don't mention the Hyperland. Wyclef is gonna lose his marbles. He's a Hyperland hater. Okay. This is an improv config. I like declarative. I get the hype for it. Make swap. Yeah. Okay. Swap. Wait, hold on. Oh, F this. Tag L. Okay, the swap is VDA2. Okay, swap. Dev VDA2. Yeah, it's a fucking terrible code base. I'll tell you that, mate. Setting up swap space, no label. Okay. Some people just like hyperlink, man. Swap partition. Okay. If I follow your same commands like a month later, I'll get a totally different result. This is imperative config. I like declarative. That's weird. I'm not a huge I don't really get the hype. I mean, I get why people like NixOS. They've explained it. Hyperland too. If I'm not lying. Like, I get why people like it. I don't know, man. I don't see the hype. I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna be patient in System 76 raw space. Cosmic Desktop. I would love to just daily drive that. Surprisingly, it's dog shit right now, but I'm trying to be charitable.
And that's done. That's key because
Yep, did that.
It's more like a signature. A2 F disk, but we've now got file systems sitting on those partitions.
Yep.
The environment variable LFS will be used several times. You should ensure this variable is always defined throughout the book, throughout the build process.
Okay, let's do a little reading. Hyperlink has general lack of good practices in their code. Lock files, rollback. Locked in people use River with hardened Gen 2 SE Linux. That's what I was running in NixOS. I forgot the desktop part. Oops. I need to do some stretchings. Cool thing I can roll back if I want. Isn't that just ButterFS with extra steps? Not hardened Musil Gen 2 with DWL? Oh no, you've summoned the Gen 2 users, all 6 of them. We just need mental outlaw. Who else? Who's a major person that runs Gen 2? Oh, I can't remember. There was a YouTuber I just recently came across that is a Gen 2 user. I even met I listened to some podcast where they are a BSD user, like they daily drive OpenBSD or something. OpenBased. Throughout this book environment, LFS will be used several times. You should ensure that this variable is always defined through LFS build process. Musil hardened SE Linux, sure. DWL is also approved. DWL. Huh. DWL. Oh, they migrated to Codeberg. No Rust though. I'm out. Wayland is the way. Wayland is the way. It's just I'm having there's when I sense Arch users, I called 6 Gen 2 users in my area and Void is my backup. Well, Void's never showing up. And Gen 2 users you need to give them time to compile, so looks like you're on your own, buddy. What is the It sucks. I think what is small damn Linux based on? NixOS reporting in. Just NixOS enjoyers, I guess. It slacks. I should just use small damn Linux. I thought it was based on dummy. Suckless is a bit more hypocritical. They call GNU bloat and then they use X11. That is pretty. I think Wayland is the future. I think it's great, but I have issues with it. I have Wayland problems. Mainly to me, but it's fine. Let's see. Links to text and light GUI browser. What is it's free operating center. Oh, it's not based on anything. Based. Might as well run Emacs OS. Emacs OS? Is this real? WSL, SteamOS, Fedora, Debian, Arch, Gentoo, Linux from scratch, Emacs. Emacs is not an OS. It does not natively do hardware input-output. It has, however, over the many years of its development, become its own complete shell user interface for an OS. You can script it in Ellipse and even code programs that run completely inside Emacs. That's right. You can run another shell, window manager, or like that. Emacs is bloat. Guys, this is okay. After it was based on POSIX Debian. Interesting. Slash Debian. I didn't know that. So it's based on it, but it's not a fork of it, right? Linux Emacs, Emacs plus Linux. When Emacs becomes Wayland compositor, hopefully soon, will become a Wayland compositor. Linux is merely a library that Emacs uses to connect to the hardware. All right, guys. After LFS, we're building in Emacs. Ideally, drive Gen 2, and I agree with you. Gen 2 is very anything beyond Arch is just silly. Gen 2 is very nice to be able to mix and match newer and older software versions without worrying about compatibility. Oh no, GNU users mentioned. Where does BSD fit in here? Switch Fedora and Debian. I saw Emacs and my mind instantly jumped to the budget power PC Max used for education. This is what you are on the road to create. Yeah, guys. Emacs is a great operating system despite the your go-to editor. Wow. Emacs is a great operating system that desperately needs a text editor. Could you do GNU and Linux are both subsets of greater Emacs operating. Have you tried it? Helix? No. Define what you by fork. Oh, what I mean by a fork? For the person who said that Arch has horrible quality in their packages, while Gen 2 has good quality of their packages, Arch Linux lacks SE Linux support. Gen 2 has good XE support. Gen 2 has Portage, which is awesome. True. Portage is cool. When I used Red Core, Gen 2. Oh, use Clang as their main compiler. Have I tried Helix? I don't know what Helix is. I'm unaware. Chris? Arch users owned. I mean, like, if it's a direct fork of it, if they forked Demi and made it themselves. Holy blog post. Helix. How are we going to do this? OS? Helix OS? Helix OS is a rewrite of OS thing from scratch with an emphasis on simplicity and correctness. It aims to be a versatile kernel that is. Helix is NVim for newbies. Oh. Real program we use EDs. Ahead, Ed, the text editor, not the thing you were thinking. I was thinking it. It's a postmodern text editor. I love these words already. Guys, it's postmodern. Can't you use Emacs to like send email or something? Built-in Rust based. Okay, I'm postmodern. It's a joke. If NeoVim is modern Vim, then Helix is postmodern. Guys, eventually, yes, we like to prototype web GPU based alternative front ends. See the discussion. It's Rust. How does it differ from Cuckhorn? Mainly of having more things built in. Cuckhorn is composed by composable design, relying on external tooling managed improvement. How does it differ from Vim? By starting from scratch, we were able to learn from our experiences Vim and make some of breaking changes. The result is much smaller code base, a modern set of defaults. It's easier to get started if you've never used a modal code editor before, and there's much less. Emacs has an IRC client and a mail client built in. Yeah. I forgot who told me that, but I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's easier to get started if you've never used a modal. Interesting. Guys, can I use this and not get bullied? It's not installed by default, but it still exists. No plugins. With no JavaScript. Oh, Emacs and a browser support with no JavaScript support. Based. No plugins. True. Not installed by default, but it still exists. Okay, download. I'll have to check this. I'll have to fiddle with this. I can build from source? Interesting. Yeah, I am. Okay, back to LFS. Okay. HX command. By the way, if you don't know, this guy uses Garuda. Of course I use Garuda. It's my desktop. My desktop is like, I don't distro hop too often on my desktop anymore. It was like, well, I'm trying to think what I did more. HX command. I'm trying to think if I distro hopped more on my laptop. I think I did, and then I found cubes, and then I was like, my desktop. I'm like, I can install whatever I want. I don't really care because I separate my my important file systems and everything from my main OS. Like nothing is in the same compartment. I can swap out my OS like a million times, and I won't. I mean, I have pretty good backups, so I won't lose anything. But I don't have to reinstall anything. Like I'm not reinstall. I don't have to transfer any files out back into the cloud to my NAS to back. You know what I mean? It's pretty much right there, like separately. Because I was like, oh, I should probably create two. I should probably create like for all my stuff, like just a mount drive separately for my entire OS for my important stuff. So we're gonna do export LFS equal MNT LFS. Okay. So
process. It should be set to name of the directory where you'll be building your LFS session. We'll use MNT LFS as an example. And as it says, you can choose any directory you want, but for consistency, it's probably best to stick to MNT LFS. It just shows that you can. So that is what we're going to be doing. MNT, but we'll just take that. Lanes there, having the variable set.
MNT LFS. Having the variable set is beneficial in the commands such as a make dir tag vls tool can be typed literally. This shell will automatically place LFS with mtfls or whatever the variable is set to when it's processed in the command line. Now set the file mode operation mask unmasked to 022 in case the host distro uses different default setting. Oh, you should do that.
Means that we substitute for to be set. Check that the
Okay. So I'm gonna do echo. Do you ever get to check the LFS is set and the unmask is set to 022 whenever you wave and render to the current working environment? Just when you're doing su to root or to another user, check the LFS version. Okay, beautiful. The output, check that unmask is set properly with unmask. The output should be 00222 or 022. The number of waiting zeros depends on the host distro. Beautiful. When we insert alpha0 and unmask are always properly to edit the bash control file in both personal and home directory, root, and in root bash profile and enter the export above. In addition, the shell specified an SA password file for all users. Must be bashed to ensure that the file bash is incorporated as part of the logic. Another consideration is the method they use. I'd like a stream where you try hardening your system. Like my system live? I don't know if that's possible. I could do Garuda in a virtual machine and harden it, or do harden Arch Linux, SE Linux. Don't they have? Isn't it possible? Does Arch have support for SE Linux? Yeah. So I could do that. I'm gonna make snapshots of this system. Oh man, I used a lot of storage. Maybe that wasn't good in in hindsight, but whatever. You know. Arch Linux has SE Linux, but it's really fucking terrible. I could do like Hardened Gen 2 then, I guess. What I need to do is get a... I sobbed so hard that I didn't want to touch Arch again. Fair. I should have... I do need to get a better graphics card for me to apparently run Doom and stream at the same time. Maybe somewhere in the future I'll get it. I want to get an AMD anyone when I wanted to get switch to AMD instead of NVIDIA for quite a long time now. We'll make sure that LFS is masked. Okay. Let's see.
The LFS variable and the umask are set. It could affect the way the bash proxy or the instructions pure not there. So you can see it's created the directory mntLFS because that's the contents of that variable. Now we're going to mount the root partition at LFS because that place now exists. So SDA3. So I'm not going to do that. So mounting the new partition.
What the fuck? That was weird. It like logged me out. Interesting. Okay. Now the file system has been created. The partition must be mounted. The host system can ask it. The book assumes that the file system is mounted directly at a specific LFS environment described the previous screen. Make dr pv lfs. Create a directory. Okay. Replace with the name LFS partition. Oh. If you're using multiple LF partitions for us, one for one for home, mount it like this. Us div LFS, LFS home, LFS home. Interesting. Okay.
So let's start by making our mount point. So this is the location for the partition to be stored. mount root H, you can see we've got the biggest partition, which was 233 gigabytes, is mounted at MNT LFS, which is what that variable is set to.
First create mount directory, first mount to, okay. So we should do to LFS. Mount check V T XT. Oh, I forgot the LFS part. Okay. Cause sworn I did it. Where did I make oopsies? Or where I went wrong.
If you're using multiple partitions for LFS, variable set to mounted at MNT LFS, which is what that variable is set to. If you're using multiple partitions for LFS, mount them like this. So yes, I've got a separate boot partition. So what I'm going to do is to make the boot partition, now that we've got the root partition mounted, so that
Damn, where did I make the oopsie? Okay. Might have to start over. I'm still here, by the way. Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Maybe we should do Arch Linux first. Installing Arch from scratch. Installing Arch. The operating device. Okay. Huh. Not all to waste though. We will do LFS. Hmm. And the cubes, and then use cubes OS there. See. What do you mean? See what? Hmm. Web. Let's see. Okay. Hmm. Yo. First trying to get the file. Chapter 1. Hmm. All right. Motherfucker, what? Wait, I can just do this. Yo, Transquil. Oracle. WSD. GUIX. GNUix. GNUix. GNUix approved? Don't be the calamars. Install. Huh. There we go. Nice. Internet already. Okay, we'll do void. I'll do arch next. Then I'll do LFS. I'll go in order. Maybe I wasn't ready. Yes. Oh. Oh, I see. Live image. There we go. Oh no, man. I just see the word download page. If you feel like YouTube has been pushing void lately, I've been seeing it a lot. It's interesting. True. They're pushing void because it has the word void in it. It sounds spooky. I don't know, brother. I just be out here. No. I love drugs. And they love me. They love me back. They love me back. Bum 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 bum. You don't get any girls? I'm okay with that. What if I was gay? What if I didn't like girls? You ever think about that? You redacted to your redacted? You ever consider that? I just want do 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 do. Void Linux understood. So we're gonna do. You don't get any men either. That's fair. 45 gigs of memory, guys. We'll do 6. That's probably true. Good thing I don't. Good thing I don't care. Press enter to boot or tab to enter to edit menu and edit a menu entry. Do I just pick Miesel x86? You get 0 maidens, no women, no men. Do I just pick the Miesel version so that it's right off rip? Man, how do people sit in chairs all day? All right, here we go. Booting the kernel, entry offset, left Control Alt. Void login. Welcome to Void Linux, the live system. 2 users are available to log in: root, Void Linux, anom, Void Linux. The anom user additionally has sudo permissions to run any command without password. To start the installer, please type void installer and follow the on-screen instructions to install additional software. Make sure you configure your network interface and use the xb install to install update packages. xbps query to query for package info. The Void Linux handbook is also available for offline access in multiple formats and can be accessed with the word Void docs utility. Thanks for using Void. Void is an independent rolling release Linux distributed developed from scratch rather than a fork, with a focus on stability over bleeding edge. In addition, there are several features making Void unique. The XBPS package manager, which is extremely fast, developed in-house, and performs checks when installing updates to ensure that the libraries are not changed to incompatible versions, which can break dependencies. True. The Musil libc, which is focused on standardized compliance and correctness, has first-class support. This allows us to build certain components from Musil systems statically, which would not be practical on glibc systems. Runit is used for the init and service supervision. This allows Void to support Musil as a second libc choice, which would not be possible with System D as a side effect of the decision as its core system with clean and efficient operations and small code base. Void is developed in the spare time of the hand-developed developers generally considered stable enough for daily use. We do this for fun and hope they will work for you. And Void, a little C Void. Interesting. All local players several formats can be installed via the Void pack. Oh. There we go. Knowledge of the ancients grept from the Git logs themselves. History. This handbook is not an extensive guide on how to configure common Linux software. The purpose of the document is explaining how to install, configure, and maintain Void Linux systems, and to highlight the difference between common Linux distributions and Void. To search for a particular term within the handbook, select the magnifying glass icon or press S. Those look for tips and tricks how to configure a Linux system in general should consult upstream software documentation. Additionally, the Arch Wiki provides a very comprehensive outline of common Linux software. Configuration and a variety of internet search engines are available for third assistance. Reading the manuals. While this handbook does not provide a large amount of copy and paste configuration chunks, it does provide links to the man pages for reference. Would you consider adding network stack to TempleOS instead? Wait, TempleOS doesn't have the network stack? Kosaka. Man pages. To learn how to use the man pages view, run the man. It can be configured by adding etc. man company. Why isn't this called Woman? Void uses the mandoc toolset for man pages. Mandoc was formerly known as mdoc ML and is provided by the mdoc package. TempleOS has no networking. Interesting. I don't think I've ever explored it. I can't remember. I don't think I have. Imagine surfing the web on TempleOS. There is a fork of TempleOS called ZelOS, if I remember correctly, that has it. Examples in this guide may have snippets of commands that can be run in your shell. When you use these, any beginning with S is run as normal user. Lines beginning with hashtag are run as root. After either of those lines, and then be example output of the command. This means you need to substitute text for a service name with the actual service name. Void can be installed on a very minimalist hardware, though we recommend the following numbers for most installations. Architecture, glibc, 700 megabytes. Bloat, 96 megabytes of RAM. Bloat. I686 glibc. Note that XFCE image installations require more resources. Void is not available for the i386, i486, or i586 architectures. Before installing Musil Void, please read the Musil selection of this handbook so that you're aware of some software incompatibilities. It is highly recommended to have a network connection available during the install to download updates, but that is not required. iOS images contain installation data on disk, and it can be installed without network connectivity. Download installation, most recent. Gotcha. Verifying the image, verifying the attendant video. Okay, yeah, based. Wow, cool, very nice of them. Void provides a live installer images containing a base set of utilities, install programs, and packages. Packages files to install a new voice system. These live images are also useful for repairing system that is not able to boot or function properly. There are x86 64 images for both glibc and Musil based systems. There's also images for i68, but only glibc is supported for this architecture. Live images are provided for Arch 64 and glibc, most of variants, but only support UEFI capable devices. Live boot images are supported, does not void installer. Installer images. Void releases two types of base images, base images and XFCE images. Linux users are encouraged to try one of the more full feature XFCE images, but more advanced users can often prefer to start from a base image to install the only packages they need. Base images provide a minimal set of packages to install a usable Void system. These base packages are only needed to configure the new machine, update the system, install additional packages from repositories. Accessibility support. All Void installer images support console screen recorder, screen reader, speak up. Kernel command line parameters. Void installer images support several kernel line arguments that can change the behavior of live systems. See the Void remain full list. Oh, nice. Create a mobile USB. Burn it to a CD. Preparing notes. Partitioning for modern partitioning notes. It is recommended that you create MRB partition if you're using BIOS system. This will limit the number of partitions you can create to 4. It is possible to use GTP partition on a BIOS system, but Grub requires a special partition boot. Root. Uh-oh. Damn, this shit freeze. Ooh. Let's delete that. Too much RAM. Welcome to the Void Linux installation, a simple and minimal Linux distribution made from scratch and built from the source package tree, available for XPBS, a new alternative to the binary package system. What's up, C? Carando, FLX? Welcome to the stream. Appreciate you coming by. Appreciate all you coming by, actually, and doing your time. The installation should be pretty straightforward. If you're in trouble, please join us. So, set up system keyboard. Set up the network. Cool. Can you please stop reading everything? No. That's the point. That's how you learn. Now it froze. How do you know without reading? You don't. LVM. I haven't tried Elvis or Gen 2. You should. It would be probably pretty cool. Huh. Am I giving it too much resources? It's weird. It's Gen 2, not Gen 2. My base distro, Casio OS. Casio's good. Gen 5, Gen 4. Yeah, when's Gen 3 coming out? We're just gonna stick with that. Have you checked suckless from scratch project real quick? SFS suckless. Let's see. Suckless from scratch is a yo, just stop by to say hello. Jupiter Sky, thank you. Appreciate stopping by and saying hello. Suckless from scratch. The problem with fully suckless distros is that they don't look. I ain't down if they ain't sucking. You know what I mean? Suckless from scratch is a project of mine where I'm trying to finally build what I consider to be a true suckless Linux-based system from scratch. I was inspired by the ideas and the concepts behind the Linux from scratch project, but this is not any sort of modified version, fork, or respin. It instantly fails when it sees a line of C++. What's going on here today? Originally LFS, but now we're doing Void because Void Linux is based, and I don't like it. That's actually a good argument for to like suckless. I'm a C++ hater actually. But this is a nice sort of modified version fork or recipe of said book, since that means to be an original project of mine. In addition, it ended up also being some sort of manifestation in the POSIX six rules of rule of diversity, showing that there's more than only one true way of doing your computing, or in this case, Linux from scratch building. I must highlight that I've never completely read that book, so I figured out this by myself. Quite an achievement. Suckless from scratch, or SF short, aims to be the first fully suckless compliant Linux system ever made, thus resulting system by the following document. Type it manually. I will soon install Rocky Linux on an older laptop. Nice. Rocky's cool. This would be cool to do. Do a suckless install. No Rasta. LL based. C++ is in fact stinky. Yeah, true. What was that? Title of the stream is literally how I Linux. Smoked a bunch of weed. Time to do Linux from scratch. It's true. Oh, hi, Mark. The meme. I mean, this looks cool. I'll check it out. C++ is sucky according to the Plan 9 and suckless guys. Too bad everything is literally C, so these compilers, I know. It should be Rust based. Oh, hi, Mark. That was a good haha meme of its time. Last year, I immigrated 100% to it. Oh, nice. Why would you use a browser that tracks you? Rust, in fact, is base. True. Finally, a Rust stands. Base Conrad. How's it been so far? I think that most people have good experience with Linux once they actually use it. Why would you use a browser that tracks you? That's a good question, Ryan. Yeah. We'll talk about that later. I mean, all browsers track you. Like, it just depends. Like, compartmentalization is probably your best. Compartmentalization is your best thwart against tracking. Like, they can track this browser all they want, you know. Hi, yes, I'm one rusty boy. True. Up and down to navigate, use the tab. Okay, let's see what installation guide. Source to install packages to provide an installation, select local. Otherwise, you may select network to download the latest package from the Voice repository. Everything I need is on Linux, pretty much. Warning: if you're installing a desktop environment, you must choose local for the source. So we'll do local. Okay, mirror. Host name. For the best experience, choose a mirror graphically to you or use the Fastly global CDN list in the world to use the default mirror repost tier 1. Tier 1 mirrors are maintained by the Void Linux infrastructure team. Always will have the latest packages available. Oh, nice. Oh, wow. Yeah. Globally available. Host name. Sometimes we create a lot of no spaces. I love Qt Creator. So the people that like have like certain jobs where it's like very difficult for them to switch to Linux, I get it. But I think there's a good alternative for everything. Like I think there's a good enough alternative like on most Linux systems to the point where like I guess like the hardest is if you're in the music industry, quote unquote, people are like, I need Reaper or I need this or I need Pro Tools. It's like, okay, how can I make launching apps faster in Linux? Remove bloat. I wish Linux had better card software though. Oh, CAD software. Yeah, OpenCAD is kind of clunky. I mean, I do some. That was my experience too. Just a matter of finding it, but it's usually a breeze on Linux due to package managers and folks talking about their favorite programs. Yeah. Also, like it's been gaming on Linux is so much easier now. You can also, I believe, remove. I mean, Gen 2 kind of allows you to do this from what I was reading in the documentation that Gen 2 allows you to remove certain dependencies that are maybe unneeded that will create build times faster and like launching faster. I have uploaded a video to test my program. Oh, nice. I'll check it out. I do wish I had better CAD though. FreeCAD just got way better a while back. Yeah, FreeCAD is. I used Tinker. I think it's a web browser based. Yeah, I used Tinkercad for some 3D prints, and then I think I used FreeCAD. Yeah, I used it for something. I 3D printed something. I was like, let me just use FreeCAD. But I'm not into like that kind of like universe, so I could be saying like it's good, but it could be ass compared to like some other people. Sus void time zone America. We gamers get working so good Linux, surely we can get some SolidWorks level CAD going. Yeah, I wish Linux just had better security. Yeah, the security is, questionable. I mean, Linux gaming is better than it has been in the last like 10 years. But password. Okay, local, say your default to time zone, root password, user account. Choose a. Okay. choose a login default. If there was a good CAD support, I think a lot of the industry would consider it more, from my experience doing tech for those places. Yeah, I could see that though. What's another one? I think video recording, like DaVinci Resolve, Linux runs the world's server infrastructure. So I mean, as long as you don't go installing virus like a dummy. Yeah, you can't. This is kind of like this is a bad comparison. Comparing Linux servers to Linux desktops, they're very separate. They pay so much money for a BS license. Yeah, dude, licensing is a nightmare. Look, I don't have a problem with giving money to a company if they provide a good experience, but the licensing fees are fucking insane. I think DaVinci Resolve is like the closest for. I have friends that use DaVinci Resolve. That's not the problem. That is the problem. Linux has weaker exploit mitigations. That is one of the main criticism, is that you cannot compare a Linux server infrastructure to it. Application sandboxing is slightly better than Windows, I guess. OBS is great. DaVinci's just isn't, for very specific and annoying. If you're an advanced user or even normally, you can increase the security of Linux. Yeah, you can do that by doing XYZ, but that is one of the main problems, is the attack surface of Linux server is greatly smaller than a desktop environment. And people, like, generally when they install Linux, they install just the base they go out, get Linux Mint. Imagine if available on Linux. God, that would fix a lot of things. CapCut. Yeah, CapCut is pretty easy. But that is one of the main criticism is, I mean, servers are massively different than Linux desktops in terms of what they ship with, what they are used. Servers are just TTY with hardening. Yeah, but that's one of the main points, is, so like people bring up like, oh, Linux, servers use Linux. Kdenlive is great if you want to do some quick edits. Yeah, Kdenlive's fine. I use Shots. I use OpenShot. OpenShot's nice. I haven't touched Kdenlive in a minute, but it was nice. And if CapCut was available, I think it would make it easier. I mean, that's what people want. People want easy, and that's fine. They don't want to sit there and configure their shit. I do think that people should, dive a little deep if they want to. And that would be probably that is good. I mean, to touch the terminal at a high level instead of just installing software and understanding a little bit about the system. That's true. A lot of tech vectors for normies that aren't there for servers. Desktop is terrifying. Not only desktop is terrifying, you're given in Windows has some advantages where Linux, shortcut, where Linux in itself is like, here's sudo. You know what I mean? Here's root. You have access to it. You don't have to, but a lot of people also just get base streamlined Linux distros, but more convenient permission handling would go a long way. Yeah, I think it's Mac control policies or something. Media access control policies would help fix a lot of stuff. Wayland does do better isolation than X11. Removing sudo actually, or maybe acknowledging the user, hey, you could do this without root, would probably be a better option. What's their name? What was it? What else was it like? or like just having no root user. That's what Bazite does. AppArmor is also great. Overall, better for beginners. Yeah, that probably would be like a good thing. I think Bazite has no root user, and that's a huge step forward too. Having no one that can just run sudo. Yeah, a lot of programs yell at you if you try to make it work by running sudo. Yeah, there's some programs that are like, yeah, don't use this. Don't be doing this as root. For biosystems, MBR or GPT partition tables are supported. To use GPT on PC biosystems, an empty partition of 1 megabyte must be added to the first 2 gigabytes of the disk, which is the partition boot BIOS. No, you don't need to this on EFI systems. For EFI systems, you can simply fix the conditioning of the root account with SE Linux. It's a shame AppArmor doesn't have easy toggles by default on most SSs. Linux was criticized for having no boundary for root. Yeah, that is one of the critical issues. I mean, so I saw Brody, Australian man, talk about the sudo rs. I didn't watch it, but I saw like him post a video about it. Sudo rs, one of the main advantages is it reduces some of the bloat. Snaps are built using AppArmor controls, I believe, which sounds like the better way to do sandboxing, but no, but too bad canonical. I'm on NixOS, and to be honest, no root user would totally be possible over here. It has root, but I did it with no root account. Someone told me to try it out, and I used the latest greatest can be built on Fedora Canonical. You can use WageRoid. I ran everything in containers too. Because it brings tools that Intex needs to create by the cloud native community. I did on FlatHub and software management. I remember that. Features. Huh. I think it has root, but it like you can run everything with. I think use RPS Austri or something, where it does and you can run everything in a container. Snaps sandboxing is worse than Flatpak. Yeah, of course. And flat kill, I think, is still canonical bad indeed. True. X11 is horrible. Oh. For me, WANLAN causes problems with AMD power management after connecting the charger to hangs. Yeah, that's true. And actually, now that I think about it, NixOS has a very way higher secure potential than I realized. RP Mastery requires privilege escalation, I'm pretty sure. Would you still recommend DuckDuckGo? Yeah, I mean, don't feed a browser any information you don't ever expect to be leaked. I think I use Brave's search most of the time because it's actually decent. CRX when I'm feeling super weird, and Google's like kind of like my last option if I need specific results, if I want to do dorking. It's not RPM Austri. Is it RPM Austri? It does not require root privileges because it creates an image that a system will boot into rather than changing running a system directly. This designs unprivileged users to manage certain aspects of the system without needing super user access. However, for operations to modify the running system, such as installing patches, root privileges, and releasing a DNF. Flatpaks, a step up from no sandboxing. Silverblue has been good to me. Good on my media PC for. I prefer native programs. Native programs fuck the world. Flatpak is a step. I think you're, if you're advanced user like me. Flatpaks, I think Flatpaks are good. One of Flatpak's biggest critical issues was the fact that they weren't verified packages. I do like Flatpaks. It's neat, slow, but neat. But the main criticism, one of the biggest problems with it is a lot of the Flatpaks that were being shipped weren't like verified. So you were just downloading where the fuck you want. That's a criticism of the AUR. Like yay. Like that's a huge criticism of the AUR is that you can just download whatever the fuck you want. And you might be downloading some shit maliciously. I mean, if it's critical, you should verify it. Okay, bootloader. Oh well. Fun. Yeah. For biosystems, GTP. Next, you will need to partition your disk. Void does not provide a preset partition scheme. You will need to create your own partitions manually with CFDisk. If you're using biosystems, advanced users may use GTP, but it will need to create a special partition for grub root tool. Yeah. Nix packages is the sort of way as well. It has everything, but you should probably check it first. I mean, you should do it anyway. Yeah, you should always check the integrity of your packages. Don't do like me, what I've been doing. Just like, hey, this looks fun. Let me download. I mean, it's in a virtual machine, so I'm not too like worried. I mean, virtual machine escaping is relatively rare. I'm not too paranoid. And if I am, then we were looking at the guy that bought shit off the darknet. And no, partition is generally simple. However, the introduction of GTP and UEFI booting does bring new complexity processes. When creating a partition, we will need a partition for root file system along with swap partition, possibly other partition for disable charge. No, if the disk has already been initialized on top of the CF disk, the screamable partition layout will already press label DOS for MBR scheme. Okay. So do DOS. Scheme GTP for the GTP scheme, and if you want to erase the partition, biosystem is recommended to create MBR partition to enable a boot system. This will limit the number of partitions to create to 4. It is possible to use GTP partition on a biosystem, but grub will require a special. Okay. Yeah, you have to go to some pretty smelly places for viruses that powerful. And to be honest, like the internet is relatively safe today. It's not perfect, but I appreciate you coming by. Thank you, Jupiter Sky. You have a wonderful afternoon. Okay. Can I escape? Maybe I should read this. For biosystems, MPD or GPU partition table support, use GDP on PC biosystems. To use empty partition for EFI systems, GPU at least one partition is required for the root file. So for this partition, you use at least 2 gigs is required, but for more is recommended. The root FS partition should have the partition type Linux file system. For swap, RAM W2 should be enough. Enough partition type Linux swap should be used. Okay. DOS right here. I think it's like what 500. Nice morning time for coffee. Yep, no problem, bro. You too. Thanks. Nice morning time for coffee. What the fuck? What time is it where you're at? Should I use what 250 megabytes? I think it's 500 megabytes. Primary. If using BIOS is recommended somewhere for the partition table, then excuse me. Okay. Type. Extended fat. Extended fat. BSD. Oh, it's M. I came from Poland. Oh, it's in 2 minutes at 6 a.m. I come from Poland. Oh, nice. Must be fucking cold. When I hear Poland, I think cold. Motherfucker. EFI, Linux, speed, DOS. You select MRB for the partition table. MBR. Where's MBR? Where the fuck are you? Empty, fat, extended. Not to be that guy, but I don't think you know any geography type. Motherfucker, Poland is cold. What you mean? Spring is already Rome. I'm just saying when I think of Poland, I think of cold time. I think of cold places. Poland sounds like a cold place. Look, all I need to know is about the USA. I'm in America. Everything outside of America is pee pee poo poo. Anything outside of America is a threat to our democracy. Man, motherfucker, where is this? Linux, NFS volume set, Darwin boot. Darwin, guys? Point on a map where Warsaw is. Where is Krakow? I didn't say I know where places are in Poland. I just said it was cold. Now you're projecting. And I just said I'm from the USA. I do not need to know where any of this is. Motherfucker. Type. Bootable, right? But type. Linux. Hidden. Linux. NFT. Linux. Plain text. Linux. Why isn't it? Why isn't it here? I'll bet $50 you can't list of all the countries in Europe. Of course I can't. My brain can only be filled with fun, interesting stuff that interests me. Geography does not interest me. Geography, like knowing where places are by memory is not a flex. You just memorized places. Let me chat that. Of course the LCon 2020 comes in. He's like $50. Let me chat GPT that. GNU novel disk PCI old Minx Linux. Do I have to use GPT? Solaris DOS FAT32 FAT31 DOS set boot DOS access DOS RO speed Linux extended boot BOS FS GTP what EFI Linux pack super specific DOS secondary EBBR protective VMware viewpoint. Interesting. Where the fuck is it? XMR the money for real. Using BIOS remedy select MBR for the partition table. Ooh. Is wrong? Can you create an MBR partition table if using BIOS system that will limit the number of partitions? It's possible to use GTP partition in a BIOS system, but you could ask me the same about the name of the. I mean, it'd be cool. Like, no, it wouldn't be cool. Actually, it wouldn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Huh. I was just realizing why is my YouTube watching experience makes the videos layout round. I don't know. That's a good question. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? I don't know the names. I don't need them for life. Yeah, for real. I mean, knowing like countries and I don't know. It's just one of those things. Okay, we're gonna do GPT. Do a video with mental mental S clueless. I don't think he does collabs. There we go. Oh wait, we're gonna delete. You knew 600 megabytes. You might if you bring that pack with you. What do you mean by pack? Hmm. It's truly a great combo. Now when you gotta read. Probably it is recommended you create MBR partition if you're using BIOS system, boot system. This will limit the it is possible to use GDP partition table on BIOS system, but grub will require a special partition to boot property. Oh, Kush pack. Oh, the demon pack. Yeah. We gotta see that meme real quick. I love that meme. God, it's so funny.
I'm smoking on Bhutanese Shadow Garden grown Dark Evil pack. They watered this with the blood of 36 dragons. Shit so purple it should be asking me where's Ron.
God, I love this. This is the funniest thing that the internet's made in a long time.
I'm smoking on Bhutanese Shadow Garden grown Dark Evil pack. They watered this with the blood of 36 dragons. Shit so purple it should be asking me where's Ronald. Nigga, this shit will.
God, I love that one. Trapster. What?
There are too many damn wizards on my block. Shit is getting annoying for real. Like a nigga can't even walk to the store anymore without a fucking wizard casting a fireball and.
That's awesome. Okay. Chromebook? Chromebook mentioned, guys? All right. Hmm. Oh, okay. So we can do. Two 6 millimeter piston seam, and then. Damn, I've been following Mantella for a while. Wish I'd be aware of when it comes to Buddy. Too bad the private sec community nowadays usually filled with schizoids that don't know what they're talking about. I think the biggest problem is everyone has an opinion because they think they know. Bose boot. Okay. March systems boot. Okay. Cyberreaders makes good stuff. I found this channel because of Graphene OS and never looked back. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it, man. Graphene OS is probably the most realistically the best Android the best way to have a secure maintained version of Android. Price Up Deck is good. He just doesn't post. Setup Burritos is good. He also just doesn't post. Maybe it's secure. His blog is pretty good. They make good points, but I think there's probably some fixes that are happening. PrivSec is good. Swap partition, 2 gigs, 2x amount of RAM. Swap space of using hibernation, 3x the amount of RAM. Okay, so we're gonna do this. We'll do and 4 gigs. 4.7 gigs. Oh, 4G, baby. Type. Yeah, their frequent asked questions are pretty good. Type Linux file system. Or do I just have to pick root? RISC 5. Hibernation not recommended. File systems review. Oh. Create the file system each part you created. For each partition prompt, choose a file system, whether you want to create a new file system. Mount point if up then return. Create a VFAT file system for boot EFI. Chrome OS. I think I can just do that. Quit. So 1 megabyte. Don't pick anything. Oh wait, I'll do. Now this is the content that should be recommended to me. Nemabo 8890. Yeah. Quit watching gooning content, man. I'll do X4. Someone was like, XFS is good. Please specify the amount point for dev. When Ryan isn't here, we are very popular because it's probably all Ryan. Ryan probably has 30 accounts. And those 30 accounts is keeping my channel alive. Oh, here we go. I guess it's appropriate since I've been using Nubra for 2.5 years and have recently been experimenting with dual booting Arch. Huh. Interesting. Why do you dual boot Arch in Nubra? There we go. VDA, none. I think that's what it says. Install Nginx and HA proxy and do the same load testing. Which one's written in Go? Don't create any file system and it grub should install itself. Okay. Swap. Linux swap. Yes. None. And then okay. Create VFS system for the boot EFI. Change. Damn it. Done. Start installation with save settings. So in the meantime, I'm just works distro. Oh, because I went to get a manual Arch installed to be fully working before making my daily driver. So okay, that's good. Does anyone here feel like job market with cyber is going to completely out of the window in terms of expectation? No, I think I'll be fine. I forget to make this. Oh, at least one partition is required for the root. For this partition, at least 2 gigs is required, but more is recommended. The fuck? He says Linux file system. Maybe pick Linux root. Hmm. What did I do wrong? Because I think that I mean personally, in my opinion, I think the best place to head if you want to get into tech is networking. It's going to be very difficult to outsource that because a lot of networking also still requires physical labor, and it's a traded skill. And then there's also cybersecurity cannot be outsourced. I think the expectations will be a little bit raised, but we should want that. You shouldn't let a bunch of retards in that kind of industry. One megabyte must be added to the first 2 gigs of the disk called BIOS boot. 1 visas or Indians should be banned from the U.S. Really from the West. No, we need immigration. I mean, that's not really a crazy take. What am I doing wrong? Immigrants do a lot for like all countries. I mean, that's not even a crazy take. We also send a lot of people out of our country to work in other places, so kind of fucking crazy. I know a ton of people that work out of country and take jobs from their people in their country. It's It's a mutual thing. It's not like an insane take to need immigration in your country. I think a lot of the companies do it because they're cheap and they'll underpay them. That I agree. They're just exploiting labor. Interesting. I'll take a snapshot of this and figure out later. I'm big sleepy. All right, guys. I appreciate you all coming by. I'll be back in tomorrow or something. Maybe install Arch. Maybe install Void. Maybe we'll go back to more Magic. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. But had much fun. We'll figure it out. You know, document